Fuck. All right, here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Let's see if you show up. Hey, and you're there. Perfect. Welcome back. How you been?
Tired, stressed out, and angry. How about you?
About the same.
Oh,
So I don't. I've got some nice little new graphics, just so that everyone knows that if you want to donate to the channel, I've got a PayPal link. It should be in the description of YouTube. And that would help Michael and us both out. If you look at the guy, he's laying on a bed. He needs help. So I
I
could
need
probably use some help
time.
too.
That's what I need. I need time.
Time, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm happy to hear you're really into this, so I'm kind of curious what you end up with a studio arrangement for yourself. I think that'll be really really cool, and most people would be like, "That guy looks uncomfortable, laying on his stomach
Mm.
the entire time. That can't be good for his posture, too, and his neck's got to be hurting." So,
I'm
yes,
working the traps. It's all good.
yeah, yeah,
Working the traps.
that works. Okay, so we had talked earlier. You wanted to go over Ukraine, which is I'm just going to go ahead and say that is not a subject that I know a whole hell of a lot of about, other than what's kind of going on in the news. And right now, just for for an establishment, I am kind of against what Russia's doing, and that's how I'm going to put it. And I think you've got some thoughts on that you wanted to share with all of us, and I'm just going to let you roll for a little bit, see what you think.
All right. So I've been looking a lot into this. I still don't have a great handle on it, but I can't find anybody else that I think really does either because it is very complicated. Um, I wish I knew what Oliver Stone had to say about it right now. I tend to like his takes. He's probably working on it, but he did a documentary in 2016 about Ukraine, and all of my research is telling me that ever since World War II, we keep backing the Nazis, and that Ukraine has been basically taken over by Nazis. And the Nazis are on our side, just like the Taliban's been on our side.
Okay,
Just
let me
we
just
we
stop you
can.
there. And this isn't a
Mhm.
signal thing. I heard Jimmy Dore doing this exact same thing. He kept saying over and over again, "We're taking the side of the Nazis. We're supporting them." I'm not seeing that. So, just like real quick, can you kind of explain what is it about Ukraine and Nazism and that how we're supporting it, just so I get a good idea of where you're coming from on that.
Yeah. So this is certainly not everybody any more than like if the right decided to go to war that, you and me would be complicit as the people supporting the war, but there are
Mhm.
a lot of Nazis in the Ukraine. They were fighting with Hitler. They Some of them still, that those values have been passed down. They weren't kind of like eliminated like they seem to have been for a while in Germany.
Okay.
Um, they there are I want to say the Azov, but I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Ukraine nationalists, um, groups of fighters, I guess soldiers. Often have rallies. They have protests. They are very they want um we're backing them. I wish I thought I knew all about this and was ready to talk about it, but it's so complicated and I'm so bad with remembering the names of stuff.
Got you. Okay,
It,
so, like, is it a thing where, like, we've got white supremacist groups in the United States, and if anyone were to lend us support financially, that we would be the it could be characterized as this nation is helping the United States, and in the United States, they have white supremacist groups, so therefore, we are supporting white supremacist groups or Nazism. Is it
that's
like that
kind
kind
of
of thing?
like the trucker thing that they tried. And no, absolutely not. We are supporting Nazis. If
Okay,
our side wins, the Nazis win. Period. Point blank.
okay.
Um,
So are they like pro ethnostaters? Like, okay, we're pro Ukrainian, or is it just like Ukrainian is an ethnostate, like they are their own thing, or like are they just like against immigration? Like, what's the deal? Like they want a white
They're being
nation?
backed they're being backed by the powers in power right now. They
Hmm.
have the country's backing, the government's backing. We put the leader in there now. Again, names. I need to be better with notes. I have a bunch of
Zelensky.
notes, and
Z-
yeah.
Yeah.
So we basically put him in. He backs them. He appointed his number two military dude as a like well-known Nazi, not Nazi sympathizer, but an actual Nazi. Um, and the basic fight within Ukraine, like if you don't know all the geopolitics,
Mhm.
Russia wants the Russian people in Ukraine that are in, I believe, how do you pronounce it? What's the city that we're having the
Talking about
confrontations with?
the Donbass?
Damas,
Donba
Damas or Donbass,
Donbass
yeah,
or something? Yeah, yeah.
Donbass. Okay.
Look at us,
Um,
2 Americans, we can't even figure out pronunciation. Like,
we're
"This is
so good at our
foreign," you
job.
know? Yeah, right?
So they like I don't think they want to be Russia. They don't
Mhm,
want to be in Russia. Russia doesn't seem to want them as Russia, but that's probably going to happen. But they don't want to be controlled by the Ukraine government that's there right now,
mhm,
obviously. And the government has gone back and forth between a Putin sympathizer and a Western sympathizer. And either Putin puts somebody in or the Westerners put somebody in. We basically put somebody in. It's one
mhm.
or the other. And it seems to be always corrupt. And the fans of socialism on YouTube, a lot of the guys that I like to listen to are talking like, we put in this puppet guy and they had a legitimate election for this other guy. From what I can see, it's either Putin's election or our election, from what I can see.
Yeah.
And so
Well, I believe the same thing
the
could be said about, Putin himself when, oh, shit, whatever president it was, when the Kremlin fell and they were rebuilding it. Wasn't Gorbachev, it was the guy afterwards that said that I was reading some things saying that, like, Putin will be the next leader, on the reformed federalist government of Russia as it is now, and that he was pretty much like a sure shot to be in there, and we were very happy about that.
Mhm.
And even though under the guise of elections, I don't know one way or the other. That's just shit that's come across my internet screens, so to
Well,
speak.
what I do
So,
know for sure, now we're
mhm,
getting into the stuff I know for sure.
mhm,
Putin wants Ukraine to be demilitarized and denazified. The Nazi party is kind of murdering a lot of the Russians there, and that's kind of the internal strife going on there. Putin does not, and Ukraine with this leadership, they talk about NATO like they want to join NATO, but I think the US just kind of tells them to say that or something because they know they can't join NATO. They can't do it. And we don't want them
well,
to
it's off the
right now,
table
but
now, yeah.
yeah, and we planned it that way. We didn't need them in that we Okay, so there's the Nord Stream pipelines. The first pipeline that was built some time ago has lifted Russia out of poverty. Russia's doing great. Like if you go there, there's boutiques, there's coffee houses. It looks like socialism worked from what I'm hearing. And then the Nord Stream 2 was just finished being built. And the US has been panicking because we
Mhm,
don't want that much gas to be going from Russia to Europe. Many countries in Europe are seeking better prices for fuel, for energy, better energy prices. They pay more for energy than they often do for mortgages or for rent, whereas that's usually our highest cost is mortgage or rent, and our energy costs are relatively low.
mhm.
They pay a massive amount. They tried to go green, and their infrastructure is old, and they didn't get to update it, so they really need better pricing on gas and oil, and Russia wants to give it to them, and they were about to open up this other pipeline, and we want to sell them and make
Well, you said
our
Russia wants
money.
to give it to them. Who are you talking about? Just Europe in general, like the EU or, like, specifically
Russia wants
Germany?
to have the second pipeline open, the Nord Stream 2. It's under the Baltic Sea, and that would then reduce how much profit we're getting from our sales. That
Uh-huh,
would reduce the price of natural gas. That would reduce our that would increase our competition.
okay,
And since the first
and we don't
pipeline
like
was
that.
installed Right. Since the first pipeline was installed, it appears that some European countries have been more sympathetic to Russia's needs and agendas.
Mhm.
We don't like that. And we don't have the control we used to just say we're doing it our way no matter what, and everybody's got to do it. This seems to be
Well, let me
right in
ask you
front of
something,
us.
because this is something I just don't know. So I've heard a couple people asking this question. It seems like to make everything just kind of like good to go and everyone's gravy and getting money off of this, that, and the other. Because NATO is not only a protective alliance, but it seems to be also like an economic alliance too, right? So
I
uh,
consider it an oligarchy alliance,
well, yeah,
but yeah,
okay. So, sure, economic and militaristic alliance, right?
yeah.
Well, I think the economic alliance just comes from the fact that we're all military, a military alliance is there, which suggests and enforces a stability within those regions within the alliance, and then the economy just kind of follows suit, right? So what?
Charitably, yes.
Yeah, well, that's the idea, or that's seems to be how things like kind of pan out. So what I don't get, and this is something that I'm like, well, you know what? I really don't know why Russia doesn't join in with NATO too. Is it because
They asked to, they wanted to, they are not allowed to.
so they want to? What were the reasons? I don't know. What were the reasons the
Wanted,
U.S. gave it?
wanted, and for all okay, first of all, this is what I've learned looking into Ukraine. This is the
Mhm.
most important thing. These motherfuckers are so smart and so far ahead, and they have the intelligence, and they know what the fuck they're doing,
This
and
is
they are
Ukraine you're
playing
talking
all of
about.
this. No, I'm talking about governments.
Oh, just
In
government. Okay.
particular, Putin and, the conglomeration of whoever's in charge at the United States. It ain't Biden, we know. But these people are like, they knew this was gonna happen. Like, everybody I knew was saying, "We're not invading Russia," and I'm like, or, "They're not invading Russia," and I knew they weren't invading Russia.
Mhm.
I looked into it right when my favorite, YouTuber, Kim Iverson, looked into it. And every time she dives into it, she gets it right. And we like I told you, I remember I think yesterday or the day before I called you up
Uh,
like they're going to war and this
yeah.
is gonna they're gonna invade. I fucking figured it out. It's gonna happen. And then it
Well, if I remember
like
correctly,
happened
you
right
were thinking
afterwards.
that it was going to be US that was going to do boots on the ground and invade them, that
I
Russia.
I just knew the US was trying to start a war. I wasn't saying how.
Yeah.
I thought that they would say Russia invaded when they didn't, and then we would end up there, and then they would definitely go into Ukraine or
Mhm.
something. I didn't even know, but what we did was basically so they we shut down the Nord Stream 2, and the way we were able to do that is if Russia has any conflict, they don't get access to the Nord Stream 2.
Right.
We made that deal. Like, we were like, "Okay, Russia can have the Nord Stream pipeline, but if they have any problems, if they get bullying at all, then
Yeah.
it gets shut down." And then we started funding and funding and funding and putting into power the people that we want in the Ukraine to destabilize Ukraine
Okay.
to cause this to happen. And the problem is if Ukraine does go NATO and or just decides they're anti-Russian, my understanding is there's also a pipeline around there that Russia uses, and Russia knows that we're next going to try and shut down the Nord Stream 1 pipeline, and they would lose all of their income if they lost like, they wouldn't have any pipelines, if I understand correctly. If they
Mhm.
lose Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2, and then they lose, Ukraine, whatever deal they have there. So they lose access to doing anything with Europe, basically. That's my understanding, which I'm pretty sure of. And so Putin's demanding no more militarization, like any weapons that are bought from NATO or the US or, they have to produce their own weapons. Get all the weapons out of there, get all the Nazis out of there or unnazified or whatever you have to do. And that's what they're doing. So they're going to
But it seems to me
basically
that Putin is kind of like, I would say, I'm not gonna call Putin a Nazi, but he definitely does seem like adjacent on some of those,
a
like, kind of period
nationalist, as
things.
I think you're just thinking of nationalism.
Well,
Wouldn't you agree?
he does signify kind of like a traditional kind of like patriarchy, kind of like a sexist government, sexist society. They're not very like LGBT friendly over there. They're killing
They're
motherfuckers like
getting
that.
better and better. They're getting better and
Well,
better,
the
and one
society
of the
push,
things
but I don't think that has anything to do with Putin. I just think that has to do with the society itself. You know.
society gets what they ask for out of their leaders, and I
Mhm.
used to think that leaders are just one way or the other, but now I'm thinking leaders are just doing what their constituents, their people that hold them in power want for them to do more than anything. I mean, Putin rides, without a shirt on that horse,
It's
looking all
badass,
manly to his people, and I get that like they've got like the average Russian living in America is probably more likely to like Trump than Bernie or Biden by
right?
far. It is a more conservative population, but it's not not to be confused with the conservative assholes you keep talking about. More like the conservative people I'm talking about. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of friends that were Russian, and they have family values that's very strong to them. Many of them are very religious. I've known a lot of Jewish Russians and a lot of Catholic Russians, and neither are very big fans of abortion.
Mhm.
So they've got those issues, but They don't want war. They're not a bunch of guys that wanna go to war. They're not a bunch of guys that are
Yeah,
talking
well,
tough all the time that way,
yeah,
you
that's
know?
undoubted.
They fear it. They do not want it at all.
I think that the globe is pretty much sick of war. They're like, figure it out in different
Yeah.
ways, and we're just done with
And
this.
they have the memories in ways we don't have of World War II, and the
Mhm.
devastating effect of World War II still haunts them in ways that we can't even
Well,
imagine.
yeah, because we didn't fight in our backyard. We fought in theirs,
Yeah.
so that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and they lost, what was it, like 3,000,000 or
Yeah.
30,000,000 or some crazy freaking number, and
Yeah.
whereas we lost, a handful.
They lost it just
Um,
like it's not even an unimaginable amount of numbers. It's just like it seems like absurd. Like 12 million. Who knows? Once you get in the millions, it's like, does that even make sense
yeah,
anymore? What is a million deaths? And then you just
it's
add the actual number to that.
unfathomable.
Yeah.
It's so many that Russian women are known for being incredibly attractive because there were so few men that they had to up their game dramatically. That's a interesting little tidbit I learned from my Russian friends and,
Yeah.
verified that. So that's what all that's about is the Nord Stream pipelines and the access to the trading they do, whether if I got that right as a
Mm.
pipeline or not, but with Ukraine and um we're
So is this the
slipping.
way? So is this the way to go about it? Is this the way to handle it?
I don't think I could ever personally go to war and start killing people. I don't think I could be a military leader and say I'm going to kill people. And he is supposedly given him like the most like charitable take. He is targeting the military and he's specifically going after, as he said in his speech, like we know who you are, he's specifically going after people that harmed his people supposedly. Who knows though? We're in the fog of war right now. Who knows if he's
Yeah,
being
there's
the
all sorts
terrible
of
Putin
reports
that.
and rumors. It doesn't seem like anyone really knows
Yeah,
exactly what's up. So, like,
yeah.
you're talking about the economy about all this, and it doesn't seem like in that hour-long speech that he was talking, that Putin had said, and of course you have to rely on the translators. I'm just going to go ahead and trust him. Well, I don't have a reason not to, so I'm going to go ahead and trust it. And the majority of his speech, what my takeaway with it is that he feels like, to me, Putin wants to reconstruct the Soviet Empire, and Ukraine is a big part of it, which is why, even Trump got the lesson when he referred to the Ukraine, stopped himself, said Ukraine because someone gave him an English lesson about a definitive article or definite article. See, I screwed that one up too. Anyway, but that's how he refers to Ukraine. He refers to it as though it is a region of Russia and that he wants to reclaim it. Very blood and soil kind of thing. And so, but what he's not talking about are the pipelines. And what he's not talking about is like how American intervention into the economies, into the markets is making his people disenfranchised. He's not saying those kinds of things. He's saying, I
That's
need to take
not
over the
something he
Ukraine.
should say though. Okay, so with the pipeline stuff,
Hmm.
if his people know that their projected income for the future just got cut in half
Yeah.
and that the other half is at risk of getting cut, that destabilizes his economy. If he says that out loud, that's massive
Well,
and
his
that's a
economy
huge
just
problem.
took a huge hit. I mean, the
Yes, it
stock
did
market and the banks and all that with the sanctions on
because
top
of
of
the
it.
war. Yes.
But that's what I'm saying. So, like, if he were to like say that this was an economy thing, at least from his own people's perspective, is like, I'm doing this for your benefit. It seems like you would want that's your best foot forward. Like,
You
I'm
want more
doing this.
transparency from our leaders, so do I. It does not happen, and
Yeah.
people get all crazy when they get it at first. Like, someday we're gonna have to be more
Mhm,
transparent, but when it does start happening, and it is happening,
mhm.
people get a little nuts at first. It's like bad things happen at
Mhm.
first when people start panicking, but eventually we have better leadership, I think. And I don't want to be the first leader to be that open and honest. I see absolute panic if he really goes into how concerned they would be about this pipeline thing. He's got to be like, we're fine.
Yeah,
The Russian government
but do
is
you
fine.
feel
We
me on
will
like
not.
how it's hard to be really sympathetic to like the plight of the Russian
Yeah,
economy
I
when the
disagree with you
solution.
though. It's hard to be sympathetic because it's Putin and because it's
That's not
not
because of
us and
Putin. I
because
mean,
it's not
Putin
our
could be an
ally.
all right guy. He could be like, okay, there's a badass without a shirt on a
He
horse,
gave a
and watch
fine
him.
speech,
So
and you and so many others took it so, like, draconianly, like, dangerously
no,
bad, and
it's just it was just like it was blood and soil. It was like these are my people. I'm going
that's
to
not
reacquire them, and that's just
No,
that's the
I am
takeaway that I
going
took.
to rescue them. See, so that's the perception that we're getting, and
Mhm.
yet he's talking about protecting them. That's the perception. I don't know what he's gonna do, and I don't know what kind of choices he really has. Like, can he protect them? Can he keep them safe without making them part of Russia and taking that land from the Ukraine? I don't know.
Yeah.
But what from what I got from the speech was those are his people, that Russians are like the same. Imagine the speech we would give in the same position. Like if you're from another country and you hear, picture George Bush, they think they can do this to us, talking John Wayne like we're about to shove some
Well
missiles up their butt.
well,
Like,
I'm trying to
however,
imagine
we
this like, okay, let's say like if this is Mexico and the US, and Mexico comes in and they start to annex like places like Texas or whatever, the southern border states, right? Where the Latino populations are really, really high. And I think there'll probably be some Latino population out there where they'd
you
be like,
gotta add in all that other history and all those other issues as well. Like their Mexican people are getting slaughtered and raped and tortured and put
well,
on
they are
YouTube
doing
and stuff.
that. I mean, with the militia kind of groups and stuff on the you need a second there?
No.
Okay, I mean, that is happening with the border crossings. The way that ICE and stuff handles their people. It's not just Mexican people, obviously, it's like any, like, Latin Americans, right, coming across there, and I think, like, some of the argument could be made of my people are over there, they're trapped over there, and they at least on the border towns, at least I could do, say, like, a 20-mile in, like, to reduce the border by 20 miles, like, you, like, take over 20 miles of that, and there's all those people there, and then we will now reinstitute, like, the defensive line from that position. And the argument could be made because, well, most of my people are there, the Latino populations are larger across the border, probably more so than white or black or any other demographic, and in they go, and I need to do that for the protection and the safety of those people, especially when you got white guys walking into Walmart shooting up the place. You know
And
what I'm saying?
also picture that okay, the best way to picture that is this is while Canada has cut off the Gulf pipeline and made some deal with us that we won't be taking any more oil from Mexico, and we used to get a massive amount of oil from Mexico, and that's what their whole economy is built on. And we've got a bunch of Nazis or otherwise anti-Mexican people just kicking the crap out of all of, them in these
Mhm.
certain areas where they conglomerate the most.
Yeah.
And then picture, the United States talking about joining the anti-Mexico NATO equivalent. And you realize how badly Russia obviously would feel the need for a buffer state because it's always been NATO versus Russia and China forever. And when Russia was like, "I want to join NATO," whether he meant it or not, he might have been calculated and knew he couldn't get in anyways. But assuming he meant it, they wanted in earnest to join NATO. They were told no, and they're like, "Okay, well, NATO's always had
Okay,
less than our best interest at
but what
heart.
I'm
We
what I'm
need a
saying
buffer."
though is that a justification for doing what he's doing is saying, like, "I'm going to be rescuing my people." Is that a
I
justification
don't
for what he's
believe
doing?
there's ever a justification for killing people, although I don't know. I don't know. I think if he's rescuing his people, if we get if we find out later that he rescued his people and saved more lives than he killed, yeah, he's right. We won't know that until afterwards. He's got a lot of he's saying he wants to demilitarize and denazify. Who knows what all he's gonna do to secure his interests? We don't know what he's capable of, not because he's so evil or such a genius, but we don't have the facts.
Yeah.
So when it's the end, for all I know, he completely takes over Ukraine and says, "Okay, now Ukraine is." I doubt he will say, "I own Ukraine." I doubt he will say Ukraine is now Russian. He would say Ukraine is independent because he wants a buffer. So, uh, but who knows? I what I do know is that the most important thing is that United States is stoking this war on purpose, setting it up in to enable us to shut down that second pipeline
Did you
before it
listen?
starts.
Did you listen to Biden's, speech, the State of the Union?
Yeah, he is so freaking high all the time. God,
I
guy
thought
does
that
not know what
I think
time
there
it
was a question I think that he had fielded, and he was talking about, like, why I think some people were asking, I'm gonna paraphrase here, but something to the effect of they were asking, "Why don't you put the sanctions in today?" And his response to that was, if I remember, was, "I am" it was to the something to the effect of, "I'm deferring to, uh, my European counterparts on that one." And I
Okay,
thought
and
that
what's
was kinda
going on?
Well, I thought that was kind of telling as far as like, okay, America's like doing like the rodeo here, and they're going in and they're like, "We've got this, little Europeans. We will handle this kind of crap, and don't you worry about it, little lady." And they seemed like, okay, well, no, actually, we're just kind of deferring to NATO itself and what the council has to say about this kind of stuff, and so we're going to wait for that before we take any further action, or when the sanctions will go into place, instead of just being like flat out like we're doing sanctions today. I'm doing like a global call to condemn him, condemnation, and the sanctions and all that stuff. It seems like he was really deferring to European leadership. That's the
He
idea I got.
imposed he imposed a bunch of sanctions.
Mhm.
None of them do much. People are saying sanction Putin himself. My understanding is that doesn't do
They
much
let
but
his yacht. They let his yacht go out of Germany. How the hell did they let that happen? Did you see that? Like they gave him
Germany
time.
still wants to get resources from them.
Yeah.
Germany still wants like okay, so if you sanction Putin and it's successful, you're going to start World War III.
Mhm.
If you kick them out of SWIFT, eliminate their ability to be involved in SWIFT, however that thing, I guess that's how people pay for oil or some shit that's tied to the dollar or something. I don't
Well,
understand
he
it,
was
but
saying
if
that these sanctions were worse than SWIFT. They were harder than SWIFT. So that's
but
why he wasn't even bothering.
they're not. He's lying. They're not. If they
I
do that,
I actually don't know
it
one way or
SWIFT
another. So,
it okay, but you're not letting me get the point out here.
I'm
Hold on.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking.
If SWIFT is if Russians' ability to use SWIFT is eliminated, or if Putin is sanctioned and it works, they're done right. That's a virtual guarantee for World War III. At least it's a guarantee that Russia and the United States are now fighting with each other, and we will have cyber wars, and we will have infrastructure wars, and we will have spies doing what spies do constantly. I don't
Mhm,
think we'll have boots on the ground in either country because I don't think we're that stupid. But we're talking like nuclear power plants exploding, the subway station in New York getting shut down, stuff like that.
mhm,
All over the place. Destruction of economy and infrastructure all over the place on both sides. That is what I see the 21st century war is starting to look like when two superpowers with nuclear weapons and the
mhm,
ability to drone strike and everything go to war. That's how it starts, I would think. If we do that to Putin, either one of those two things, we're practically guaranteeing that from everything I've read and researched.
mhm.
Those are the absolute nuclear options. We seem to keep pushing to make Russia look like as most the bad guy as he possibly can be, the biggest boogeyman we can possibly make him out to be, but we're setting it up. And
Well, I mean,
that much is
he's
clear.
kinda doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
What else is he supposed to do? I don't understand what he's supposed like I know what I do differently than him, but I don't think I could run Russia. What's he supposed to do?
Well, I think, what's really particularly telling is the fact that, even when questioned, Biden was saying, like, "Have you talked to China? Have you talked to China?" They keep asking him this stuff, and he keeps saying, "No comment, no comment, no comment, no comment," which leads me to believe, like, no, he's not talking to them, or at least China is not being cooperative with them. And so if you've got China pretty much backing Russia on this one right now, uh, I'm not gonna say that's problematic one way or another, but it seems like that would solve his problem, and it's just reverting, like, get out of European interest and be more Asian centric. Like, go through Mongolia, Kazakhstan, like, all that kind of stuff, and
They
down to China.
consider themselves European. They do not consider themselves Asian. Ask the Russian people. This
Well,
is
that's
an
fine, but
absolute
I'm just
fact.
talking about from a market standpoint, it seems like just go that route.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be in their best interest, and but I'm quite sure if China was like, "Would you please just build that pipeline south?" They would have built the southern pipeline. Every country is doing what's in every country's best
Yeah.
interest, and that's the thing I think a lot of people forget. It's not some leader going off Hamcock being like, "I'm going to do it this way." Every country is basically doing what they think is in their best interest at any point in time to retain power. It's every leader is trying to retain power by keeping the country running the way they need to retain power.
Mhm.
And so if China is or is not supporting Russia, it has nothing to do with right or wrong or whether they should or shouldn't or whatever. It's simply because China doesn't know that it's in their best interest. And if I'm China, I'm going to shut the fuck up and be taking Taiwan real soon. As soon as things get real hot and heavy in the Ukraine, I'm shutting the fuck up and biding my time. And then we are totally fucked. And I'll
Yeah.
bet that's what's going to happen is we're going to get real heated with Russia here as we are, and then China's going to go ahead and almost sneak in the middle of the night and take over Taiwan and be like, well,
No.
What's the difference? Like, look in the mirror, like, projection much if we have anything to say about it. And it's we're gonna lose our chips. We're gonna not be able to sell the gas and oil we want to sell. We're gonna be sinking real quick at this point. We're gonna be panicking. And what does an empire do when it's on the downswing? Well, we've been at war forever, and that war just escalates and heats up. And I think, well, that brings me into the next thing. Is I think this whole COVID thing was a big test run for World War III. That's what kind of hit me today. And so let's just get into that. This is my Glenn Beck moment here, where I want the
uh,
marker board and I want to go into the
Jesus
conspiracy theories.
Christ. If you're gonna do
Um,
markers, I'm gonna do the hurricane coming in, how Trump does it with the weather service. I'm just gonna start drawing my own shit in there.
exactly. We need to up our projection values
You
so we can do this. Um, but I'm thinking like
You hear that,
this whole
everyone?
new world.
Donate to the channel so we can get a tech guy to put this graphics on the screen for us.
Don't um this whole new world order thing that the right wing crazy fucks have been trying to warn me about for the last 20 years. I feel like, yeah, they were onto it. Um, I think COVID leaked from a lab on purpose. I think that this whole like how many people can we get on the vaccine passport thing, I
Mhm.
maybe they didn't time it quite right, but I feel like after seeing how this both sides seem to know everything that was going to happen with Ukraine besides Ukraine. Ukraine had no idea how badly they were just going to get ruined here. But, the powers, the real powers that be, Russia and the United States, seem to know exactly what's going to happen for a long ass time and had all
Mhm.
these contingency plans and stuff. I'm I, I used to think that things are so chaotic and like your conspiracy theorists typically think that there's just like one puppet master and all this stuff is coordinated. It's definitely not just one puppet master or just like a small group. It's a pretty good big group of people can pull in the
Mhm.
strings, but I think they have a lot more power than I gave them credit for. And if you know World War III is coming, if you know that you're at the end of your economic empire, if you know that things are getting bad and you're in power,
Mhm.
and you know that World War III might be the best chance to like maintain that power. Historically speaking, this is how it works. You want control of your people.
Yeah.
And I just keep thinking, like, what if Omicron was worse than Delta and now we were back in lockdown again as things really heated up with Russia? Are they going to let anybody but essential workers outside in the middle of World War III if Russia's doing what we think they'd be doing and whatnot? Like,
Oh, shit,
I don't know.
honestly, I don't know. I really don't
And
know how that would work.
and I can just picture us testing out some stuff through, like, I'm not saying necessarily that the military invented COVID and then unleashed it on us to see what would happen or anything that crazy, but
So when
at
you
the
say that,
very least,
so to just for the narrative that you're kind of building here, it sounds like
in
it
the
would have to
effort to
be,
control the people.
well, yeah. So if this was, you said that the COVID was released by, oh,
I do
someone's,
believe COVID was released in the Wuhan lab
by
on
who? The
purpose,
Chinese or the
engineered.
Americans?
Fauci would be one of the people that would have been sitting at the table going, "Let's do this." So
So
I
you
would say
think that,
Chinese and America.
so you think that Fauci was in cooperation with China, and that's what happened? Like
I'm
it.
not saying Fauci's talking to the Chinese leader, dude. I don't know anything about that. I don't even speculate that. I'm just
Mhm.
saying it was a Wuhan lab. Fauci has ties to the labs. He has investments in those labs. He goes to visit those labs. He
Mhm.
works within those labs to a degree. He doesn't do any lab work. He's not that kind of scientist at all. He's not a scientist or a doctor by what he does at all. But he he's got ties, and so does Bill Gates. He is actually invested in these labs and owns a stake in them
Mhm.
and benefits from the research. And he's one of those son of a bitches that like does torturous animal abuse research, like just the most heinous stuff. Like you look at the worst animal testing that's ever been done for anything, he's on top of that list.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other atrocities you can tie to Fauci. Like there's a long Fauci is a dirty, dirty, dirty dude.
That's fine.
He
I'm
should
just
be
trying
in
to wonder,
jail.
like, with the narrative that you're kind of building up there. So, like, if it was
I
Fauci
wouldn't
doing
put it
this,
past him. He seems so incredibly evil that
okay.
I could just see him doing it, and I could see how much this benefits the establishment. I could see people wanting to test this and that, see what happens
So
with this and
who
that.
do you think gave him the order to have this released?
At I don't think it's so much giving him the order as very powerful people invested in the pharmaceutical and military industrial complexes. As I keep saying, the two biggest
Mhm.
entities basically in the world,
So
right?
he
The
was
most
being
powerful.
proactive then, or did he take marching
I,
orders? Just like which one?
I see it as a room full of people that agree to do stuff. I don't see one guy saying, "Okay, release
Oh,
the
okay.
such and such."
So kind of like a
I see a
committee
but like
decision.
Bill Gates and him and, like, 99 people we've never heard of,
Okay.
But I mean, we would have heard of probably 10 of them or something,
The
but
colloquial "they" are the ones.
yeah, and I know this sounds
I
freaking
know, I
nuts,
know.
but, like, how else does it work? If we did this thing, it
Mhm.
sounds ridiculous, but there's so much. How much history there is with this kind of fuckery. We
Yeah.
do this shit, the CIA documents that get released and shit, we know what this kinda shit has happened constantly, and in our
Mhm.
lifetimes, we do this kinda shit foreign and abroad.
Mhm.
We know
Well,
this,
the
but it
question
always
would be
seems too fucking nuts in the middle of the moment.
well, the thing is like, sometimes they do it, but not everything that, like, conspiracy that's attributed to them is, necessarily true. That's the thing,
Yeah, I
so
it's a big bunch of gears moving in tandem, benefiting from each other without
Mhm.
it's not like one guy going, "Okay, we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do," but it is a guy that's both invested and entrenched in the pharmaceutical company and the military industrial complex that says, "Well, while you do that, we could also do this and that." I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's gonna try and benefit from everything they can because that's how rich people are. They're very good at making everything benefit them and
Mhm.
using the current establishment and what it's doing and getting the heads up, the knowledge ahead of time. You look at how everybody invested and where all of their money lies and when they pull it out with, our Congress people like Nancy Pelosi's investment stocks that she owns and stuff, like we can see this.
Well, no, I mean,
It's
you could draw connections all day long, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is.
well,
That's the issue. You know what I
it's
mean?
not a bunch of guys getting together saying we're gonna release COVID and then start World War III. I'm not
So it's not
saying
12
that.
monkeys. It's not like that kind of thing.
No, but it could have the same results in and many, many more smaller conspiracies within that. And 10 years from now, or 20 or 50 years from now, when we find the facts, there's going to be a lot of like, holy shit, he knew about this and he kind of started that and he was involved in, and we're going to find out that there were a lot of connections that you could draw the dots between this whole conflict that we're having and how we handled COVID and the money that was made from the pharmaceutical company. And we're the one thing about the pharmaceutical and the military companies is if you're not making money on one, you have to be making money on the other, and we have to justify what we do with the like all of the money we pump into the
Mhm.
pharmaceutical companies and all of the money we pump taxpayer money going into both entities, military and pharmaceutical. They have to be justified, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't like what's going to happen next year. How are they going to keep raking in these insane profits next year or this year, I should say? And I
Uh,
think that's World War III. So does it make? I'm figuring this out as I'm saying it, and
mhm.
I'm not saying it's like one guy going, now COVID's done, now it's time to start the war, but it's just kind of how it works and how it benefits the people in power. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, no, I can totally see it. I mean, like a capitalist society, well, excuse me, we don't even do capitalist society. Just the point of a corporation is to turn a profit. That is its ultimate goal. We could agree on that.
And
So
eventually, it's got to do some dirty deeds to keep staying so profitable.
yeah,
Eventually,
and America, but it's not just us. Other countries want to also turn
every
profits.
country.
Yeah, they all want to do
Every
that.
big entity, and the
Hmm.
bigger it is, the more important the profits are, the more people feel they have less of what's that? I forget the phrase, but where they have less of a stake in it, less morality conflict. Like if I own
Or
5%
humanitarian
of
conflict or whatever, something like
yeah,
that.
if I own 5% or if I own 0.01% of what's that Georgia one? The war company in Georgia in Marietta. What's that? Dobbins.
Mm.
What's the fuck the company that makes all the weapons there? What are anyway? Name a freaking company that makes weapons, please. Any company that makes weapons.
Magnum,
Shit, not at all. Ugh,
Marlin
I gotta
rifles.
get
I don't
better
know.
with names.
Yeah.
Okay, a company that makes war weapons, so planes and stuff. A
Hmm.
company that make like Bowen.
Oh,
Okay,
Boeing. Okay, yeah, sure.
okay,
Is
a
Boeing? Yeah,
company that
Boeing.
makes bombs, whatever.
I
These
agree to Boeing because that's name recognition. I actually really don't know if
yeah.
they make weapons or not, but yeah.
It's not the one I wanted to, and I don't know if they make they make bomber jets, bomber
Mhm.
planes and stuff. But these so let's say you own 0.001% of one of the huge companies that produces like the stealth fighter and stuff like that, and we're going to war. You made yourself $750 million, and yet you had no like moral issue. You didn't pull the strings. You didn't say go to war. You didn't say I hate those fucking Russians. You None of that.
So
You
you're
had no
complicit,
play in
basically.
that.
Yeah, you're just
Yeah,
complicit in
that's
it.
the word. Like, you don't feel like you're complicit when you're invested in these companies at the lower level. The bigger the companies get, the less anybody feels complicit.
Mhm.
And so that's the terrible thing
But
about
these
it. Like
things
the
become
idea was,
these like grand conspiracies. It seems to me like it's a series of like if they are to be believed, it seems to me it would be a series of like small little storms converging on another one to create this overarching narrative into other things. There just seems to be so many independent
yeah,
things at play here
yeah.
to orchestrate a very clear and concise like goal, like an end game to all of this. And it seems very unwieldy and very unrealistic, but through a series of justifications and like personality assessments and things like that of the major key players, it seems like he could kind of like justify this all out without evidence because it just kind of lines up with like, oh well, these are things I already feel and this makes sense and this does it that way. So it just because it starts to be like the bigger it is, the more likely it would be to fail or that someone would like expose this for the conspiracy that is that with actual like evidence thing. You know, with someone would have this in here. Someone would see
And
like
yet,
here it is.
throughout history, every single time we go to war, every single time we displace a leader in another country, every single time we fuck with countries,
Mhm.
with what we do with diamonds, with the diamond industry, with what we do with um, the drone strike programs, with who's making the money, there is all this kind of conspiracy shit, and it's a bunch of tiny things that come together and kind of funnel in to benefit the richest the most, and it is how it works. And it is, I thought I had my phone's broken. I can't see the screen, so I can't turn off the ringer.
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize. um and so it, I don't think it's like this cabal of people with the new world order, like specifically saying we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this.
Mhm.
But the people that get powerful bend society to keep benefiting them. So
Mhm.
look at who's powerful and look at the directions they're taking and look at the investments they're making.
Mhm.
And they're working together. Look at what Amazon's invested in. Look at what Google's invested in. Look at where all their money's going, where all the research is going. Look at, who the lockdowns benefited and why Washington Post writes forever about how we need to stay indoors no matter what, even when everybody else is getting sick of it. Consider how much Amazon benefited from that. Consider how
Mhm.
much Microsoft benefited. Zoom is huge now, et cetera, et cetera. And it does funnel up to the, like you talked about, all this messy stuff happening. It
Mhm.
does funnel up to the top. Your favorite phrase, follow the money. It's the way it works,
Why
and
is that
and
my
so I'm not
favorite phrase?
much
I feel like
sarcasm
I'm
there.
just kind of repeating it back. Yeah, okay, no. No, I
I know
totally
you're
get
sick
it,
of
but
that phrase.
like what is it? I always have to like actually define this. What is it? Dunning-Kruger? You're familiar with
Dunning
that
Kruger
one? Yeah,
effect, yeah,
yeah.
I'm familiar.
So like the basic thing of it is in psychology, a cognitive bias where people with limited knowledge or competence in a given intellectual or social domain greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence in that domain relative to the objective criteria or to the performance of their peers or people in general. Right. So, given that,
Mhm.
that is something that it kind of exists. So, like, where do we stand when it comes to conspiracy in relation to Dunning Kruger effect?
I am not speculating that I know what the conspiracy is. I am stating that I know there are a bunch of conspiracies going along that are
Mhm.
leading us down a certain path that's pretty easy to see. And based on my extensive research of how fucked up we have been in the past and all of the terrible, terrible things we do as a government in the past, I cannot imagine that this would be any different than every other time you look back and see, holy shit, the CIA is pushing this way and the FBI is doing that and the NSA is doing this and the White House was trying to pull this off.
Well,
And
we don't know really what the CIA is doing. We don't really know
we
what the
have
NSA
no
is.
idea,
Hmm.
but we do know what they did in a lot of cases, and we only
Hmm.
know the stuff they're willing to let us know. We don't know the
Right.
worst of anything.
So, what about
And
instances where these, like the alphabet organizations, actually did something for good? or prevented bad things from happening that we should applaud them for, but they're pretty much like no one's ever really talking about. When we always speak up, it's like we always talk about the bad shit that they do, but we never talk about the good things they do. So it's implied that they don't do anything good. They don't do anything that benefits. They don't do anything humanitarian. They don't do anything for the good of the
No,
people.
no, no, it's a cost benefit analysis.
Mhm,
Google used to be good for humanity. They took a turn, and right now they are bad overall for humanity. Overall, right now, Google
mhm.
and Amazon and all of the other biggest companies are
No,
doing more
I'm
harm
talking
than
about the
good.
government stuff. I'm talking about the CIA and the
So
operatives and the higher ups.
then you go back to how you tend to trust the government more than me, and I think the government is just trying to stay in power, and when an empire is trying to stay in power,
Well, that's
that's
exactly what
never
I
any
trust about
good.
the government is exactly what you said, that they want to stay in power. Like, yeah.
And so anything and everything to help the government is to help them do that,
Mhm,
and it's not good. It's in the package of not good. Like, so GPS satellite system, that's
mhm,
been a big, awesome thing for us. That was done by the military. Google search, apparently, it seems as though the government helped create that algorithm, I should say.
mhm.
The government's created a lot of really cool
And then
shit,
they
but it's
sold it to
been in the
Google,
name of
right? The
war.
GPS thing?
They've got a deal with Google about aliens and some shit. Like, they've got these deals with Google about if this happens and that happens, then you have to defer to us, and there's a bunch we don't know about, but there's some really interesting stuff that's been leaking lately.
Mhm.
So, like, the government works very, very much hand in hand with Google and has been for a long time. Like, eh,
Well, it makes
this
sense.
is what
They can put their
yeah, I
research
mean,
power the company can put a lot more research power than the taxpayer can with certain
I thought
caveats.
our government was so inept that they wouldn't see Google coming until Google was so massive, but our
Mhm.
government saw Google coming in its infamously, it appears to be. There's leaked stuff from the CIA and from the NSA and from so many others, the FDA and stuff that
Yeah.
just shows how in cahoots the government is early
You know
on
what?
whenever something gets big.
I'm not gonna label him by name, but you know who I'm talking to someone very specific right now who's watching our channel. This is exactly why I
A
want you
guy
to
I like.
Yeah, this is exactly why I want you to be on the stream, okay? Because he knows this high tech business a lot better than you and I. So if you need evidence, you know who you are to come out on this stream and join in on this topic. This is why. Help like educate us Luddites on how this stuff works. Okay. Anyway, moving right
And
along.
in future episodes, I really wanna talk about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency,
I'd love that
blockchain,
too.
and the new world order stuff involving that kind of, which I am having trouble not getting into with this stuff, but I think that's all tied together. I think everything's tied together, but that doesn't mean it's like one big, succinct, easy to follow conspiracy. I just think that the ultra rich have their hands in everything that matters,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah, would always be a rich thing.
Yeah.
The more conspiracies that you put in, which means the higher ups, the more of it is an argument for socialism. And
All
there's my
right, on
plug of the
that
day.
note,
Yeah, there's my
I
plug of
wanna
the day.
close with World War III is happening, I'm predicting it, I
Okay.
absolutely believe we are going to World War III,
Who are
but
the
here's good
players?
news.
Who's the players?
Us and Russia basically started off,
Okay.
but the good news is I keep being wrong when I make strong predictions. I bought
Well,
Bitcoin at 50,000 and said it's time to buy. I am always wrong about my at least my timing is always way off. I knew Bernie was gonna win. I knew he had the votes, they couldn't stop him, I fucking
that's
predicted it.
such a shame, man. I just like I just
Yeah,
fuck
well,
Americans. They're so goddamn stupid.
I keep being wrong. I
Ah.
looking back, I think I'm really good at dissecting what happened, but everybody thinks they are. You know, everybody thinks they do great research, as you've talked about. Do your
Although I wonder how
research
many people watching this are looking at you going, "Wait, you were Bernie? You were for Bernie?" I'm wondering how many are just a
so
little
hard.
shocked and appalled
I
about that.
knocked on doors for that sellout bastard.
Oh man, here we go. The shots
Oh,
fired.
it
Okay,
hurts.
yeah,
Um,
I'm just
yeah,
really disappointed, Bernie. Even with his sellout or whatever kind of criticisms you want to levy at him, I still think he
you'd
would have
still
been off.
love to have him in office
Oh,
right
of
now.
course. If anything, as a launching pad for more left
Sure.
leaning, left direction movement within our government. It's too.
I am now afraid that wokeism would have taken over.
Mhm.
and he would have felt like I can't do anything about war, but
What
at least we can make people stop saying this and that. That's my fear.
what how do you define
But
wokeism? I'm just kinda curious. This seems to be one of those very, like, amorphous terms depending on who's saying
okay.
it.
So, um social justice warriors is another way of putting it, I think.
Mhm,
When my daughter first moved in, she was severely overweight. She was a lesbian, and you had to use the proper pronouns, and she wanted to know the proper pronouns, and things had to be said right.
mhm.
She was very woke in that way. Do you remember Misty at R. Thomas, that hippie that was going to school to be a lawyer? That I was the stripper hippie lawyer that I was dating by chance
I know we
before
had a lot of
Christina.
strippers in there, but I don't
Yeah, we
know.
did. Well, she like right now, she would be so angry at the way I talk, and she would cancel culture. That's the other thing. I think that's like if I say cancer culture, social justice warrior, or wokeism, I'm basically
Mhm.
talking about the same thing. And to define it would be the most liberal in the ways that liberals can be extremely liberal without actually doing anything that
Mhm.
hurts them or lifting a finger. It's the difference between building a house
So you think just, like,
for the
virtual
homeless
signaling, that kinda thing,
and
that's
yeah,
wokeism?
that's the other phrase, yeah. It's a difference between building the house for the homeless and coming in and saying, "Wait a minute, that house can't be built because you don't have enough black workers," or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that it's really easy to hugely, um, uh, prop up those views and incite, a lot of, infighting within our population with this stuff because it doesn't really fucking matter nearly as much. Like
Mhm.
if I'm a person who's struggling and you tell me, "Hey, good news, we're no longer referring to you as a retarded idiot who can't make it in life." I'm like, "Just give me a job." Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the
Gotcha.
minorities that the Democrats thought they had
Mhm.
are voting for Trump and are moving away from the Democratic Party for this reason.
So you think that because they're slow to move on it, that that becomes a problem for them? Because, I
That they
mean, I think
don't really wanna move on anything that matters. The Democrats just wanna what was the last phrase you used? Not dog whistle, but,
virtue signal.
yeah, the Democrats just want a virtue signal, but they're not going for any change, and the conservatives want a virtue signal that they don't want any
Well, that's why
change,
I say
but
over and
neither of
over
them want
yeah.
any change.
That's why I say over and over again, I really don't think the Democratic Party is a push for the left. I think it's simply a pause in the way of pushing to the right, and
It is a pause for pushing harder to the right, but it is moving to the right.
yeah, that's what I mean. So,
Yeah.
basically, like, Trump swings it really, really hard to the right, and then the Democrats come in, like, "Pause, okay, whew, slow it down a little bit," and then another Republican gets in, and it swings way, 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 way hard to the right, and that seems to be the case of it. That's why I'm disappointed about Bernie, because there was no push to the left. That would have been a launching pad to push that way, and it's not happening, and, especially with the disappointments
If
of
he
the
didn't get
squad and
Medicare
whatnot.
for all, then we would have put somebody in that would have gotten it in, I think. If he didn't get what we he promised, we would have
Yeah.
kept moving in a direction to try and get that. Whereas the way it went now, it just kinda defused the whole party. It
Yeah.
ruined any chance for a revolution the way it could have been, a nice one, maybe
Mhm.
an evolution and not a revolution.
So let me go back to the wokeism thing. So because I think that the easiest way to define it is just simply wokeism is synonymous with progressivism. All right, which is just like moving
That's
forward.
unfortunate.
Hmm.
That's very unfortunate. So, like, there's the woke people call themselves progressives,
Hmm.
hardcore progressives.
Hmm.
And I considered myself a progressive. And as a progressive, I was like, no, we cannot vaccinate mandatory vaccines. And no, I don't need laws passed that like protect people's right to be called he or she and et cetera, et cetera. Um, and I thought I was a progressive because I wanted good, healthy progress
Hmm.
in the right direction, and I
Well,
feel
like we
like
had a
they
chatter
like
saying, healthy is subjective. So what you might think
yeah,
is
but
healthy
I
might not be to other
they
people.
took they're an infection, I hear you, but they're an infection that
Hmm.
took over the progressive word,
Mhm.
just like the government always takes over all the best words. Like, if they pass a law that says anything about peace, it's a law for war. If they pass anything about like protect, it's a law to harm. You know how that goes. The law is all. If it's a Patriot Act, it's not very patriotic. They and they just they adopt. They said, these woke people, we can get behind all that shit because there's nothing that's going to be done about it anyways. And they got behind them, and they're all these fucking idiots are fighting the wrong fight, talking about like the least important stuff, and
Well, I think some of the
it's
things that they're talking about is pretty important. I mean, I would put
not
BLM.
anymore.
You don't think BLM's
No.
important
Okay, so BLM as
or
a
was?
foundation has not put money where it needs to be. They have absconded, they have ripped off people, they have not done anything good. So, no. The idea, lots of ideas were great, lots of ideas were great, but the inclusive idea of everybody needs to be inclusive or else
Okay.
we're going to cancel you is
Organization.
not inclusive.
Yeah, but organization alone, like I don't follow BLM as an organization. I more just like
It
look at.
got dirty.
Well, I just recognize the impact that it had on the social discourse, and I think the overall, like, you don't, yeah, but what the criticisms about the police, how they interact with people, especially like white folks are kind of even videotaping their own interactions with them, and I think that was a good
There
starting
was
point.
a lot of good stuff that came from
Yeah, so
wokeism.
I'm going to
It
say,
is
yeah,
now got nothing good to offer. It is nothing but a zit, an infection, a big pus ball of crap. It's got nothing good anymore. That's my
mhm.
contention now. It brought up some really good talk and stuff. Now they've gone too far and they're canceling everybody in all the
Let me.
wrong ways and they're terrible.
Do you mind if I get just a tad personal? I won't do anything to dox you, but you had just talking about like your interaction with Karens on the street and your kids. You had brought that up before.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I kind of just go into it a little bit with you on that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Just kind of a question. So, do you think that your interaction with these Karens, the ones that were judging you for the lifestyle, like the decisions that you made with your children, whether it be like I'm going to follow behind and let them go independently to the store and giving you a bunch of shit about it, whatnot. Do you think that if you had been of a different skin color, that in addition to what they had done, they would also said something along the lines of "Go back to your country"?
No, so the same exact people
Hmm.
that would have been like that, that were like that with me,
Hmm.
would never have responded like that with me. I don't think if I were a minority, like black or something. Because I'm white, it was actually a hindrance in this case because it's like he's white, he should know better. He has money.
Hmm.
It's, like when a black man beats his wife, to a degree, there's the economic injustice, and you know how hard it is to function under kind of money stress, da da da
Hmm.
da. And the white man who beats his wife does not in any way get that kind of consideration. I think that kind of played a hand. But at the same time, if I were black or if I were Hispanic and I was looking the way I looked and doing things the way I do, I could see the go back to your country type calling the police in the same exact way for the same exact
Hmm.
reason. It's just a different person seeing it differently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just wondering, like, the types of people that seem to be in judgment about this is because you don't hear Karens going into the trailer parks. You don't. They don't. They don't. But
Generally, no.
yeah,
They're
okay,
generally at their nice parks calling the police on the black guy trying to have his barbecue or something.
right.
Is kind of the trope.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, I mean, the tropes is like, yeah, you see a lot of this stuff, and they're all over the place, and people make compilation videos and all this kind of crap, and usually lots of things seem to run concurrent with one another, and that seems to be one of them, which is you are not like me, therefore you do not belong here, which means that you should get the fuck on out, you know,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what I'm wondering in circumstances when it came to you, because you seem to um, ascribe that why these people said these things to you is that they were woke liberals, right? And
Hmm.
I don't know, it just doesn't really follow for me that's the conclusion that you would rest on. So I'm having a little trouble understanding why you think that
Okay.
this is a woke
So
liberal that's doing that to you.
a
What?
lady that called the police on us with the bike
Mhm.
seat drove a Prius and had bumper stickers for, I believe, Clinton at the time. She had a bunch of bumper
All right,
stickers.
say no more. Okay, I got you.
The two girls that called the police on us, one of them had a peace necklace very much like Misty, the girl I dated at our Thomas.
Okay.
And they were obviously very clearly very progressive Bernie supporters, the kind of people that I could have talked politics with and had a hell of a time, and just we would have agreed on everything. But
Mhm.
I look weird. I dress like I got my clothes out of a dumpster because I've done that before. I don't give a shit how I look. I want to be clean and I want to be healthy. and I need to get more sleep for that. That's my biggest problem is I don't get nearly enough sleep, but I
You
do
should work
want
on
to
that, man.
present myself as health I'm trying.
Yeah.
I really am. It's getting more and more important as I get older, but I do wanna present myself as healthy and attractive without it having anything to do with how nice my clothes are,
Mhm.
and I'm pretty good at that, and I feel like that does society a little bit of good, and I feel like it does me a lot of good not worrying about my appearance in all the wrong ways.
Right.
But the fact that I do things my way and don't really take into account how society deems things gives me a window into how free we are not. We are very free to act in ways that don't worry other people.
Mhm.
But whether or not that worry is misplaced, we come into a lot of trouble, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, or anything else, when you act outside. Like I've been pulled over by cops when not I don't know if this is pulled up. I've been stopped by police because I was jogging.
Mhm.
I was jogging with jeans and my work boots on because I don't I have really comfortable work boots that I'm gonna jog with. Like, why wouldn't I? And the jeans fit me right, and I needed to go for a jog, and I wasn't gonna go home. I've been stopped by that.
Oh, so you weren't
I
wearing
don't
your jogging outfit?
Right,
Your shell
and I
suit
was
or
in a
whatever they
nice
call that? Yeah.
neighborhood,
Mhm.
and I'm in a nice neighborhood, and it's not my neighborhood, and I'm working near there, and I thought this is a nice neighborhood to run in, and I got stopped and harassed for that.
Mhm.
If I had nice jeans and I had really nice clothes and I was jogging and if they could even tell, then I think it's less likely that like, the more money you obviously have, the less likely you're obviously gonna be going to rob somebody or whatever. And so I think the fact that I don't look really nice and the
Mhm.
fact that I'm like jogging in these weird clothes, I don't feel free when I've got to sit there for 30 minutes while a cop checks me out and checks out my whole record and asks me a bunch of questions and won't
Mhm.
let me go because I looked different.
Mhm.
And so I run into these kind of things a lot where other people they don't even realize how much they do for society's benefit. They're like, well, that's just not the way it's done.
Mhm.
People are, you know, constantly conforming. And I mean, we all do. I happen to do it a lot less than the average person without trying. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah.
I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, no, I
And
totally
so
but I mean, the
with the woke crowds, they're just as bad as the redneck crowds that would call the police for different reasons, and they're both the same kind of
mhm.
assholes. They're on the left and the right.
Well, I mean, the situation you just described is almost identical to what Ahmaud Arbery, where they gunned his ass down for jogging in that neighborhood, didn't think he belonged there.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
the same kind of
And
thing.
and if I were a black person doing the exact same thing, I
Mhm.
can honestly, I mean, I'm not like this redneck that thinks that whites are losing all our rights. Like I might in the exact same conditions jogging with my work. I wouldn't, if I was a black person,
Mhm.
I would, no matter how strange I am, I would know better not to just run in regular looking clothes in a nice neighborhood. But if I did, I could see myself going to jail or at least being there an extra hour.
Yeah, yeah.
I certainly have my white privilege, but I also see what a lot of white people don't see, I think, in that kind of and it's also helped that I went to prison.
Yeah.
When I was in prison, I was a minority in prison and I got both benefits and drawbacks from being a white person in prison
Well,
in
everyone's
Georgia.
gonna wanna know now, did you join the Aryan Brotherhood while you were inside
Of
prison?
course I did, and the Black Panthers because I like to play both sides. No, I'm kidding.
I
I
expect you
had
to, like,
friends.
stand up, rip open the shirt, show us your swastika.
Tattoo, yeah.
Yeah, right?
I had friends that had swastika tattoos
Mhm.
that were friends with the black people, and, it was like in some of those movies where it's like it's all about the money, it was totally
Yeah.
like that. I had a situation where I walked back to my dorm, and there were 23 people, that were waiting to beat me up and just kill me, and
That sounds like fun. Yeah.
this super old school racist dude talked them out of it and talked them into giving me another chance and that I might be a cool dude and save my life supposedly. And so there are a lot of very interesting
Yeah,
race
things that are perceived as racist
dynamics
in
there.
prison I've never been to prison, but it seems like racism takes on a whole new thing in the prison system.
Huge. The
It's just
less
more like
people
a
have, the more it gets like that. When
well, because
you know how
class
it
is
is.
to me, it seems like class is removed almost immediately from, like, a prison setting.
Yeah,
So all you're
yeah.
left with is your ethnicity or your race, and so they just
It's
draw
all
the
you've
lines
got to
down
be
that
proud
way.
of. It's all
Mhm.
you've got to be tribal with. And yeah,
But
and
it kinda goes against the argument of, like, a common problem for everyone. You would think that the prison populace well, okay, I'm speaking based upon reputation only. I have no actual insider experience into them, but it seems like they would be like, "We are all prisoners, so it should be prisoners against guards." But it's kind of funny how, like, they all That's the Reputation. Maybe I just watched too many
Okay,
damn
this is
cop shows, but
exactly what the power structures.
mhm,
There's plenty of documentation how prisons set up the prison system to keep people divided. If all people get along, then all the people are going to be able to get together and say, hey, all of us are saying no more of this food,
mhm,
no more of this treatment. Get CERT team out of here. We will no longer allow you to do this or that.
mhm,
The division within the prisons is extremely important to be able to subjugate people the way they do.
mhm.
And this scales up to our government and why they love the abortion issue and why they love the gay rights issues and why they love the other issues that don't fuck with their money.
'Cause it keeps us fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So let me ask you what I asked you at the beginning, at the
okay.
end of the last podcast. What is the worst thing anybody can do? Period, point blank. The worst thing anybody can do.
The worst thing anyone can do.
Yeah.
Hmm. I really don't know the worst thing anyone can do.
Go to war, god damn it. That's what it is. It's go to war.
Yeah, but why?
For any reason, to go to war, you're gonna commit the most atrocities. You're gonna
Mhm,
be, responsible for whether you were one of the people that wanted war or the person that, pushed the button.
mhm,
You are complicit in rape, child molestation, sex trafficking,
mhm,
and burning people alive and torture and
mhm.
everything that every single country will always do when they go to war.
Yeah.
And um, I want I want everybody to know that. I don't feel like just like when you're invested in a stock and the company does something shitty and you don't really care and you don't even want to know what's going on with that company. I want everybody to know
But I think
what's going on with the country and to remember that
yeah.
war is the worst possible thing ever,
Well,
and
I think,
there's never a good reason.
yeah, and I think the reason is kinda like what we were talking about earlier when we were saying that when you kill 1,000,000 people, that's just unfathomable. You're just like, I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like. It becomes like you immediately have to go into like an abstract like modality in your brain to be like, what is actually 1,000,000 dead bodies in the street? What does that look like? You know what I mean? So I think when you're asking what is the worst person, and also to be fair, you asked, well, what is the worst thing one person can do to another?
Any
So
person.
yeah, I think war is up there. I have to agree with you on that one. That is, yeah, a leader taking someone's war is the worst thing. Uh, which means that you should be against Putin right now because he is taking us into war.
They lost 27 million people in World War III,
Yeah, World War
according to
Three.
Wikipedia.
You mean World War Two?
Excuse me, World War II. Yeah.
I was like World. Yeah, okay.
That's projections.
Hmm.
World
Yeah,
War II. Yeah. World War II.
I think to tie that back around, I think Putin should have gone to the table. I don't think he should have invaded. I don't think he should have been lobbing any kind of military at anyone, at anything, at any time, at any place. And I think the moment he did that,
85 million total lost in World War II.
mhm,
I Yeah,
that's
that's what
terrible.
sickens me is I don't think Putin has a choice within his world, within his bubble, with what he knows. And I don't think I could go in there with my love and peace and we never go to war and achieve anything. And so I don't have good answers.
I mean,
But
wouldn't that be a justification to remove him? I mean, if this is the guy, this is the reality he lives in, and this is the only options he feels like he has to do, that sounds to
yeah,
me like
yeah,
that's a loose
absolutely. Then
cannon. That's a
his
guy you got to get
people
rid of.
need to do that. His
Yeah.
people, and we need to remove our leaders, all of them,
Hmm.
every one of those fuckers in Congress and the Senate, and every none of them. Maybe Ron Paul. I don't think he. No, no, never mind. I think he did go for one row. Anybody who's ever voted to bomb anybody for any reason, I would like them removed. Even if I would have done the same thing in their shoes, I don't
You'll
care.
replace them with the
I would
exact
like.
same ones.
I
You'll
if you
replace them
keep.
exactly the same.
They all want to keep their job.
Hmm.
If you set the tone, hey, you do this, you'll get removed. The next person will want to retain their power. They won't do it.
Who was
That's how
that?
it works. You
Some
don't vote the good person in office. You make the people be good when they're in office.
so someone kept telling me about that series, John Adams. Did you ever watch that? I
I
still
don't think so.
haven't. But he kept telling me about this one part about it, especially when it was coming up to, I guess, with the United States government, when they were coming up with like doing term limits on things. And apparently, I guess John Adams was appalled, or according to the show, this is. I'm exposing my weakness in history, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
a lot of interesting stuff like that, though, so that doesn't surprise me.
so, like, at the time when he was president, he still had, like, he still had his farmstead and everything that he was working on it back at home, and so when they called him up to be president, it was more like a kind of a civil duty rather than like, "Okay, you're
Yeah,
gonna now be put in a position of power," right? Let me adjust this
yeah.
mic. And so the idea was like when he he was admonished, he was like, what are you talking about? Like term limits? Why would anyone in their right mind do this more than once? I'm just trying to get through this term so I can go the fuck back home, you know." And from somewhere from it seems like from that point to where we are right now, money and power have gone into it exponentially, and I would like to see that removed where it is actually it is a profession of civil service, and not being like a career politician, but kind of like, yeah, you've been putting in this. This is your duty to your country to be an elected official. You serve your term, you do the best that you can, and then moving on right along into the next one. And getting rid of
Mhm.
all the systems that basically kind of like corrupt us, because the money will always be that. It will always be a corrupting factor. You have to take it out of there. You have to take the power out of it. But
Oh god, I really wanna talk Bitcoin now.
yeah, but then at the same time, though, like, it has to have some kind of power. Like, we do have laws, people do want to break them. So, to some degree, we need to have some power to at least enforce these things. We need to be able to regulate companies. We need to be able to regulate, just like whatever, just crime in general. People, you know what I'm saying? Construction companies take advantage, whatever. If we have that kind of system, we need to be able to, like, if we set down the law, it needs to be able to be enforced. But at the same time, it shouldn't be like a personal power kind of thing. Like, well, now I've got leverage over people, and then I can do that. And as long as it keeps up that way, we're going to keep running into this problem. So you can like, oh yeah, I want to remove everyone out of government. They'll just come right back because their incentive remains.
I
You
don't
know,
have any easy answers for fixing the mess we're in and how corrupt our government is, and I know if we vote somebody out, somebody else will just come in, and we need a third party and a fourth and a fifth
right?
and all this stuff. But I don't have any easy answers. The only 2
I don't
big
think there
things
is
that
an
I think.
easy answer. I don't think there's a magic wand you could wave for this at all. So
Yeah, but I do think what changes everything is blockchain and Bitcoin,
I can't,
separately,
we're gonna
and
have to
I
let's save that for the panel that we're gonna do because
okay.
I I, I
I
don't
do
know
think
anything
that's
about
the
this.
big game changer where all of the questions change,
Hmm.
and that's I can't wait to really get into that. I wanted to talk briefly about censorship and tell you that I am a free speech absolutist
Oh, god damn it.
and, get into that,
Okay,
and
what
that's like
about protected or not protected speech, but like illegal speech? What do you think about that?
I don't know what you mean. What do you mean?
Child pornography, libel, bait and
Okay.
switch, fire in a crowded
So
theater, assassinate the president, that kind of stuff.
you should have the ability, the physical ability to say whatever you want and reach the largest audience that anybody else can reach with whatever
Okay,
message you create. And then you should be arrested if you broke the law.
right.
And if you told people that they should go have sex with babies,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's against the law.
Hmm.
But you should be able to say that on Twitter, and then when you're in prison and you steal a cell phone,
I disagree
um,
because what
you
you're
should
doing,
be able to still have your Twitter account
what you're
because I
sa-
believe that Twitter is a utility at this point. Go ahead.
well, the reason why Twitter shouldn't do that is because simply for what you said that it's illegal. Twitter by saying like allowing it to even happen is condoning illegal activity.
We need to allow everybody to speak freely,
But they're
and then they need to
facilitating
pay
the
for the consequences. It's a telephone. It's just like a telephone, only it
Mhm.
works better. The megaphone put Hitler in power.
No, 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 you're missing my
Beepers.
point, you're missing my point. What I'm saying is if Twitter puts up, like, let's say, like, a child pornographer puts it up and Twitter allows that to goes through and does not take it down, does not ban the account, anything like that, they're
Okay,
complicit in
I'm
the
talking
commission
about
of a
what
crime.
somebody says. I'm
Mhm.
talking about what somebody
Well,
says,
define
right?
speech then. Is money speech?
No.
Uh, really? Okay, good. I'm with you
Yeah,
on that one.
I'm not in that boat. I
Okay,
am
so
not in that boat. We're on the
perfect.
same page there.
I'm not on that one. Is art speech?
Yes, and if you paint a picture of a man having sex with a baby,
Mhm.
I can't believe we're saying then and you put that on Twitter, if there are other laws that say you cannot
I can't
create
believe you just
images of men
said
having sex with
that.
babies, you should get in trouble for that, and if there's not a law, there should be a law, but you should be able to
Holy
go to Twitter just like you can get on the phone. I see Twitter and
yeah.
Facebook and any other
I hope you
large
watch this afterwards, man, because I want you to just be like, "Holy fuck, what did I just say? Why did?"
it's gonna be
Okay.
hard.
Oh my
I
god.
know it.
Okay.
But
No, but okay.
yeah,
So if
that's
art,
where I stand. I want it to be like I Twitter and Facebook and any social media company that gets big enough should be like the
mhm,
telephone, like the megaphone, like the pager, like the cell phone, like you can say what you wanna say,
mhm,
and it's just reaching more and more people. Like before you had to send a letter and it took a month. Now, then you could make a phone call, and then you could page somebody, and then you could have a cell phone and talk to
yeah,
anybody, and then there's like all these social media platforms, but I feel like they should all be treated the way the telephone is treated.
right. Okay. So like the telephone is treated. It's an interesting
I can
thing.
call you up and if
Mhm,
I do a group call and say to 5 or 6 people, or if I say it to the wrong person that I like to do terrible things to people and it's illegal, then call the police.
right.
But then
But
I
this is the
still get
internet.
to use the phone. I
This is the
still
internet,
get to use
right? So like the main difference is that is once it's put up there, it's there forever, right? And then it's at the behest or the responsibility of the platform to do something about it to remove the material off there. Otherwise, it's just up there like it's archived forever. So it's like a repeat commission of a crime over and
And if
over and
you
over again.
search for child pornography and you are
Mhm,
not a researcher who's doing research, and you keep looking at Twitter pics from this guy that put up the
mhm,
child pornographer, then
right.
you are looking to get in trouble, and that's the way it is. We don't need another law. Okay, here's the thing.
It's
Here's
not
what
a
it
law.
comes
It's
down
just a
to.
TOS thing. It's not like saying that it's a law. What I'm saying is like, if I were Twitter and some guy put this up and it was illegal, then I'm going to like, okay, so I'm not
Right.
complicit in a crime. I'd be like, holy crap, there's a guy that just put this up there. I'm taking that shit down because it is illegal for me to publish this material. It would be illegal for me to keep this up there. So yeah, it should absolutely be taken down. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they have things in play. Well, they might have algorithms
Okay,
and things in
that's
place that.
Twitter as a publishing company. That's like
Mhm,
I wrote a book on how to cook babies, okay?
mhm,
Recipes for cooking babies, and I take this to my publishers. The
mhm.
publishers won't publish it.
Yeah, right.
I can still self-publish it. I
Mhm.
can bind it myself, I can get it done myself,
Yeah, and
right?
you'll be taken down. But we're talking on social media platforms. So,
I
like, yeah, they
okay,
need to be able to
I
take
made
this down.
phone calls to do that, I used email to do that,
Mhm,
nobody should be able to stop me from doing that. I contend that Twitter is that type of a utility. It is email, it is phone calls. I want that kind of free speech, and the reason for this is not because I want the baby cookbook.
mhm,
The reason for this is I want people who have been subjugated, who have been basically told they're worthless, who have been thrown in prison, who
mhm.
have been told by their government that you are not good enough to be in our society. I want them to be able to get their message out, to be able to run for governor, to be able to start a protest, to be able to talk to as many people as possible.
Okay.
And I want the people to say whether or not this guy, this sicko pedophile or baby cooker or whatever the fuck
So
is
you
wrong.
okay, so
I want
you wanna
people to
saddle
decide that.
Twitter with that responsibility to be the knight in shining armor?
There's no responsibility. Free speech platform, you can easily create something that puts a warning on anything where if enough people say this triggers me, you can have a trigger warning
That's a
on
TOS.
any post.
But that's a
That's
TOS.
all they have to do, but I'm talking about never banning anybody. I'm talking about never like, they shoulda never taken Trump off of Twitter. They can't be doing that stuff, or they're gonna be we need to go back to a decentralized internet. That's what we need to do. Because I don't want these freaking companies in cahoots with the government because that's what they're doing. Like, if you give COVID misinformation that says you need to get vaccinated one too many
Do you know
times.
why they should have taken Trump off the social media? Do you wanna know my take on it?
In a second, let me finish this one.
Okay.
I could go on Twitter or YouTube and say, "You need to get vaccinated 100 times before you're okay for COVID," and I would never get in trouble for that. And if I say you should not get vaccinated, I will get in trouble for that. It's always at the behest
Uh-huh.
of the powers that be. And so that's the way it always works. That's the way it historically works. That's the way it's gonna work. And that's why I want to have a truly free speech platform on all of the major social media groups. So why should Trump have been removed?
Because his answer to the social media problem with his what was it, truth book or whatever stupid shit that he came up with, whatever that nonsense
Yeah.
was.
Truth something, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So his answer to that was like, "This is a free speech platform. You can say anything that you want to say. We will never take you down. We'll never ban you. We'll never do anything." And then in his terms of service, his one caveat for all of that is you are not allowed to say anything disparaging about the creators of this platform. So honestly, fuck that guy. He's so full of shit. He's so full of shit. What a
Jimmy
hypocrite.
Dore had such a funny Vince Vaughn impersonator on his
Mhm.
show going, "Yeah, Double V here. I don't really have a problem with that. Like, it's free speech. Other than that, it's good for me." And I can't do it, but it was so
Yeah.
funny.
Good for me, but not for thee. Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah,
like, honestly, and taking Trump down from social media, dude, like, I can't not believe that the president of the United States, who at a moment's notice could call a press junket and have them at his door, pen and paper in hand, camera, whatever PDA is going on like that, and listen to what he says and absolutely and signal boost and broadcast that across the freaking globe had the audacity to say, "I'm being censored." What a fucking pussy. I mean, seriously, fuck that guy. That guy is such a piece of shit. I just for that and a
I would vote
myriad
for
of
him
other
over
reasons.
Biden or Clinton in
I
a
know, because
moment.
you got brain damage on that matter. I don't know what your fucking
See,
problem
okay,
is
here's
on
what you
that.
just said. You think I say some pretty stupid and/or crazy and/or
Mm,
off the wall stuff, and I appreciate that
and
you
that's
still like
fine.
talking to me.
But you know what though?
I
You don't
contend that
cause
one of those
harm for
crazy
the most
things
part. You know what I'm
I
saying?
contend a lot of people feel differently. I get told that I cause harm on a regular basis with my views. But
Okay, I don't
Trump,
see it, but okay.
anti-vaxxer, that one's easy. I'm killing all kinds of babies with my anti-vax rhetoric. But Trump
Fair
is
enough.
a fucking idiot. I totally agree with you.
Mhm,
But you said that the reason he should be taken, and I know you didn't quite mean it this way literally, but the best reason to have him
mhm,
removed from Twitter is his answer was to do this and that. But that's not a reason to remove him from Twitter. That's the
mhm,
reason he deserved it.
mhm.
But it is not a reason to. There is no good reason to remove the freaking president or former president from the world's largest communication platform. God knows there are way, 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 way worse leaders in other
Do
countries that
you have
call
a
themselves
problem when the
Democratic
government
president.
lies? Do you have a problem when the government lies?
Yes, and every single
Mhm,
politician lies. We can both agree with that. AOC is as full of shit as anybody else at this point. I think we can both agree that at least every politician lies all over the world.
mhm. So, when you've got a guy who was like, what was his average? At least 40 to 50 untruths or misinformation a
That's
day?
horseshit. That's horseshit. That's liberal media bullshit. No, he was wrong about a lot of stuff, but they overamped all of that, and Biden is just as bad. And this is the fucking problem I have with the goddamn libs. I want you all to listen to me, the three of you listening
Wait,
to
wait,
this
wait.
stream.
Just let me get my thing out
You're
real quick. If you are a person that is going to say like, okay, the government lies, the government is conspiracy, the government manipulates, the government does X, Y, Z, and then and an independent company says, you know what, we've had enough of this shit. We're going to take his ass down, and we're not going to platform his crap anymore. It seems like a person with your mindset would be in full agreement with that because that is actually doing a good for society is to knock a fucking president down and say that no one is immune, no one can lie, no one can do this shit, even you. You can't do this anymore, and I will knock your ass down. No one is above that. And I think you should be applauding them rather than condemning them.
I would not be, but if your argument had merit,
Hmm.
then you would feel the same way about Biden because he says so much bullshit so often.
Hmm.
He says shit that's not true regularly, but he says it with the kind of way that your uncle would say it, and not that crazy right wing guy. But he's just as inaccurate. And Putin lies constantly. We know that they
Hmm.
all lie. Should we deplatform all of them? Look, sir, you're
Well,
about to lead
first
us
off,
into World War III. We're going to deplatform you.
professionally, I don't think
No,
politicians should be on social media anyway. I mean, like, this is the
I
president of the United States. It's an accepted echelon above us, and to
You
like,
are skirting the issue. Twitter is the
mhm,
largest platform to reach people.
mhm,
It gives people a voice. I want everybody to have equal rights to that voice. If not Twitter, then we need a public utility that works just like Twitter. Whatever the people have decided is the best way to communicate, that's the socialist in me. I'm sorry, Twitter. I know
I'm
you're a privately
you know
owned
what?
company
I'm
or you're
fine
a
with
public
that. Like,
company.
kind of like a thing like Linux or something like that. I'm totally fine with that. Like a completely like community run based kind of thing. Like, I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't
When
mind
a
as long as like the
company
law's not being
reaches
violated.
market capital like
Mhm,
Twitter does, when they've become the biggest way for anybody to say anything they want, when they've become that,
mhm,
we can't build something else that's an alternative. We have to make them. This is the socialist in me. This is the socialism I
mhm.
have. That is now a public utility. Thank you for creating it, but now you have to follow these rules.
So just for the
Just
record, you're
like
okay with the United States
telephone,
government
just like
absorbing Twitter?
just like the internet.
Mhm.
No, I'm not okay with the government absorbing Twitter any more than they did the telephone or the internet.
Okay, so
That's not what I'm saying.
who would run Twitter then if it's a utility?
Jack Dorsey, if he still wanted to do it, whoever's doing it now, but
Mm,
they'd have certain rules and regulations like Verizon and Ma Bell have, like all of them had and have. There are regulations to running the internet tubes, and we
mhm,
want like we want a free and open internet, and they're trying to restrict that. I Twitter became so big that it should be treated like a communications utility,
mhm,
and I it's not just an app anymore. It's not some dude out of his garage that made a cool app. It is now like the world's way to communicate, and they're stupid for having censored anybody, and that was their bad, and they
oh,
fucked up. And
one
what?
second, you've frozen up on me, and I don't know why.
Uh-oh.
Let's see. Yeah, shit, I don't know if you're frozen on me.
I'm not frozen on me. I'm looking at myself, and I am my Discord is showing me is moving
What
around.
the hell, man? This feed is all kind of wonky. I do not know what's going on with this. Let's see. Let me put it into the intro real quick and see if I can get you back in here. Sorry about the technical difficulties,
I am
everyone.
so fucking tired of being censored, Sean. I'm sick of it.
Oh, great. And now you're gone just all the way around. What the hell, man? Seriously, anyone watching, you want to like lend me a hand on this stupid streaming platform? I'm so unprofessional with this shit. What the hell? Why are you gone? There you go, but you're frozen again. Holy crap. All right, dude. We've got technical difficulties on this one. Um, Crap. You want to call it a day? We're an hour
Can
and
you hear me
20.
at all?
I can hear you, but it's just, I
Yeah,
mean,
let's call it a day. I ended with what I mean, we were talking about what I was ending with anyways. The
okay.
last thing I do want to say is we need to free Julian Assange, and I want every single podcaster to start saying that at the end of their podcast. When you
Okay.
say goodbye or whatever your sign off is, free Julian Assange.
Okay.
That's my
Can
sign
we do
off.
the fist too?
Yeah,
Like,
like you can see it.
right. I did it for you.
All right.
All right, man. It was awesome talking with you, of course. And let me know. I'm going to give you a call afterwards, as I normally do. But yeah, at least you, for the record, you got a freeze frame on a kind of a half smirk right now, so I don't have you
Okay.
like half eyed or anything like that. You're good to go. All
All
right.
right. Good
So,
deal.
all right.
Talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon, man. You take care and have a good one. Okay.
You too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
bud. Bye. All right. So that was fun. I think these are getting a little bit better. For everyone that's watching, we've got the PayPal set up. If you want to support the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you would like to contact us, that contact info is shaughnessy@gmail.com. I really appreciate you guys watching. Please like, subscribe, help me get the channel. We can get this up and monetize, and then we could be paid for our labor. That's awesome. Democratic media for the win. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and we will see you